If there's one thing that I could really emphasize about abundance in general that I have learned, it's the idea that more than the amount of money you have or don't have, abundance is really a mindset. Think about it this way. This is honestly one of the things that totally changed my mind about it. Think about money in a way like air, breathing. When you breathe in, air is there. And when you breathe out, air goes out. So it comes in and it goes out. If you tried to store air, it wouldn't work very well, right? Like you can't like take in a big breath and be like, I'm just going to hold on to this so I have enough air. It doesn't work like that. And I had this realization one time at a moment when we were out of money and I was worried about it. And I was literally sitting there kind of almost stressing about it. And ironically, we were at the time house sitting in this very large house. Belonged to some friends, and it was big and large and extensive. And they had a pool, and there was this blow up inflatable unicorn out there, right? And it started to deflate. Like, I guess it had a small hole, and so it started to deflate, and it was like humped over and like sagging and looking pitiful. And I looked and I was like, that unicorn's kind of like me right now, right? Like, I'm sagging and sad. And this thought came to me that here's this unicorn. It's a blow up unicorn, so it requires air. It's surrounded by air. It's just not taking it in. It's just not accessing it. And it was almost like God was saying, you're that unicorn. Like, you're surrounded by air. You're just not using it. You're just not taking it in. You're just not trusting that it's actually there. And so I was able to get this understanding that that's essentially what abundance is. It's learning to be able to trust that when you take a breath, it's going to be there. Like we all know that because it's happened to us throughout our lives. We've trusted that when I go to take a breath, I'm going to have air to breathe in. And because of that, I'm not going to be afraid to breathe out. I'm not going to be afraid to let my breath go. Money is kind of like that. You have to not be afraid to let it go out of your life because you're trusting that it's going to come back in. It's breathing in and out. And it has to. In order for money and abundance to actually work, it has to do both. It has to come in and it has to go out, and it has to do so freely. I came from a very scarce mentality. I grew up in a, lower middle class home. Greg grew up practically in poverty. We were both on welfare when we were kids. Like, I know about scarcity. And I feel like that mentality stuck with me for a long time. In fact, still I find myself having to, oh wait, no, that's an old paradigm. That's an old way of thinking. So it's a legit thing that we have to work on overcoming. I think for me, it works best when I try to take it moment by moment, especially in the moments when I find myself doing the old way of thinking about money. For me now, that's my moment to practice abundant thinking. You have to change the way you think so you can change the way you feel about money. Greg's talked about it before. It's a relationship. You are in a relationship with money. And obviously, it's more often than not a negative relationship with money, because if it was a positive relationship with money, or completely positive, it's not that it's entirely negative or positive, but if it was 100% positive, then you would be living in abundance, right? So as you progress in that relationship with money, that's how you also progress in abundance. The biggest thing is how you feel about money. How you feel about spending money, how you feel about making money, how you feel about using it, how you feel about unexpected expenses, how you feel about the future when you think about money, how you feel about debt, the bills, all of those things. That's all a part of your relationship with money. The way to change how you feel about it is to begin by changing what you think about it. So you have to be very deliberate, especially at first, of changing your thoughts. Like, I will talk to myself when I'm feeling a certain way. I talk myself out of feeling that way. So I'll use logic, I'll use affirmations, like I'll use whatever I need to in order to remind myself and to talk myself through feeling stress, worry, anxiety, whatever about money. But I basically do it when it counts, right? So when I start to feel that way, instead of letting myself get stuck in that and worry and stress and then worry myself into more lack. And I gotta not do that, which used to then stress me because I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna be more, I'm gonna be more broke because I'm worrying more, which is also true, but it's also, it's worrying about that only makes it worse. I learned to then use those moments to be like, okay, here's my chance to practice. Here I go. It's practice time. And I would calm down and I would pause and I'd be like, okay, let's just take a deep breath because breathing reminds me money is like it's like air. Abundance is like air. Let's work through this. Let's talk about this and remind myself of the thoughts and feelings I should be having instead of the ones that I'm conditioned to have and like automatically are occurring right now. Because ultimately that's what it is. We have all been conditioned to respond in certain ways to topics related to money. And so we have to recondition ourselves to respond in new ways. Okay, I'm going to tread carefully here on this because I'm not a financial advisor, right? Do not listen to anything I say, that kind of stuff. Legal disclaimer. One of the things I had to really learn, because I used to stress majorly about debt. And I think we've been trained to do that. And I think the reason why is a good reason, because debt is a tool that can also be a weapon. Debt is something that the analogy that works best for me now is that debt is a power tool. If you want to build a house, you better use a power tool. Because otherwise it's going to take you a dang long time to build with a hammer and nails. You want to use power tools. There's nothing wrong with using power tools. Okay, do you understand that? There is nothing wrong with using power tools. The danger is when you start using the power tools to destroy what you're trying to build. There's a very wealthy, rich man. His name is Ray Dalio. He's a very successful investor. He's written lots of books about investing. One of the things that he said that changed my mind, he said, never let your debt outstrip your income. Wealthy people use debt consistent because debt is a power tool. We're not trying to build a little shack using hammer and nails. We're trying to build mansions. And in order to do that, you have to use debt. It's just how it works. So I had to overcome that belief, like, oh, wait, this is what wealthy people are doing. Like I grew up in the whole mentality of never use debt, stay out of debt forever, never, And I had to switch that to realize that if you study the lives of all wealthy and successful people, they've all used debt. It's a tool. That's one thing. Then the other thing is I had to learn how to switch my mindset about this is the most challenging part about pursuing your dreams. It is a fine line between success and failure. It is a fine line between taking risks and failing and falling on your face completely. The major difference I have learned through experience is being able to have that staying power to keep going and having the faith that you'll figure it out. So when you're in the midst of being in debt, spending the money's going out, but it's not coming back in yet, the thing you have to do, I have learned, is keep being positive and saying, nope, we're going to figure this out. We're going to keep going. Oh, it's not coming, but it will. I am trusting. I'm moving forward. I'm having faith. I'm not giving up. I'm not going to despair. We're going to figure it out. That right there is what makes the difference.